Now, we were talking about schools a lot on the programme with Dominic Raab, with Mark Drakeford, and also, of course, with Professor Spector as well. The damage being done to children, their education and mental health by being out of the classroom is something that, of course, looks set to continue for at least a few more weeks in England. Now, someone who wants to see more done to address this is Anne Longfield, who's stepping down as Children's Commissioner next month, and she joins us now. Thank you for being on the programme.
Good morning.
We're just hearing that some quite positive data from the Zoe app, but also from the official case data as well, that case numbers do seem to be coming down. Do you think that schools could reopen sooner than the 8th of March in England?
Well, I certainly hope they can open as soon as possible, especially primary schools. And I think parents and indeed children have their eyes on what is going to be said at the press conference in a few days' time in terms of a roadmap, but also whether their school will be opening on the 8th. We should remember that most kids have been out of school for just about a year. They've just had a few weeks back in. And of course, during that time, most have been falling behind in their education. They've been away from their friends and away from those support networks that are just so important to them, especially those that are more vulnerable.
You said especially primary schools at the beginning of your answer. Do you think there is a case to allow younger pupils to return before secondary schools?
Well, that's certainly something that countries across Europe have been doing. The case is that those children are less able to work at home remotely. Their parents need to be there because they need a greater level of care and support to learn. And they're much less likely to pick up that level of infection or indeed potentially transmit. So across Europe, you've got France, you've got Italy, you've got Spain, all of whom have primary schools now back open. Now, of course, there's exam years as well that we need to look at for older children. But certainly for primaries, there seems to be a trend that actually smaller entities can get back open and can be managed.
Of course, catching up on a year of disrupted education is going to be really very difficult. What's it going to require? And do you think we should look at things like shortening the school holiday, for example, to give a bit more time?
It's going to take a huge effort. Really, this is kind of a war effort kind of scale. There needs, of course, to be a boost for children in terms of catch up in education terms in the classroom, potentially as well using some of those times, yes, in school holidays, the longer day, but part of that really needs to be as well about helping children to build back those social skills and that confidence. They haven't been in school, but they haven't been going to their football classes either. They haven't been going to their karate classes. So all the fabric of children's lives have disappeared over the last year. So we need to see a really ambitious programme of recovery with significant investment now, I think, from government. I've always said children haven't had their Nightingale moment yet. And this is the time, because I think the alternative is that there's a group of children who won't make up the time they've lost. These are the ones who started behind, who are struggling, potentially about 1 in 6 children. If they don't get that level of support and boost, they won't ever catch up during their time at school. And that's something that they and all of us will reap the benefits or see the impact of.
Yeah, 1 in 6 children maybe not ever catching up is really quite alarming. I was also interested in what you say about the mental health aspect too, because it feels that we're very good at picking apart the academic impact of what the last year has been. But as you say, there are social impacts as well. Children spending all day looking at screens, young children in particular being told that they should be fearful of close contact with other people. What do you think the consequences of this could be?
Well, we already had a significant mental health problem for most children in this country, for many children in this country. Simon Stevens called it an epidemic only 2 years ago. But what we've had over the last year is really, the shock of the pandemic, but also that lack of interaction with others, which at different ages has its impact. For very young children, I've had parents talk to me about how their children have become clingy, shy to talk to other children, not able to talk to other children in the park. For primary school age number, that they were worried about what the future would bring. All of the things they expected to be around them and to be stable in their lives is suddenly gone. And then, of course, those that are in secondary school and have their focus on exams and what comes next, there are a terrific number of uncertainties for those children. So we know the prevalence, again, is 1 in 6 for those children as well in terms of probable mental health conditions. I'd like to see mental health teams in and around every school to really help children at the first instance before it falls into crisis.
The Education Secretary, Gavin Williamson's had a lot of criticism about the way that he's handled the pandemic. What do you make of his performance?
Well, look, I have left who sits around the cabinet table very much to the Prime Minister. And of course, it's been a difficult year with a lot to cope with. But I don't need to tell you that there have been difficulties over the last year, and schools themselves will be the first to say that. I'm pleased that the Prime Minister is taking a lead on this. I'm pleased that the emphasis now and that commitment is to put children and put schools at the heart of the opening up of the economy and opening up of the country. And I think that's where it needs to be, because it's much more complex than just what goes on in schools. A whole range of factors need to be in place to ensure that schools open, and that now must be the priority.
And just finally, research by the Joseph Rowntree Foundation this week has found that over 4 million children are living in poverty, 1 million of them under the age of 5. Given this, would you like to see the £20 a week uplift to universal credit extended?
Yes, I think it does need to be extended. It's had an important impact and that needs to continue. This isn't the time for families to have that uncertainty or that drop in income. And what we do know with very young children that clearly are bearing some of the brunt of that increase in poverty, if you fall behind before you get to school, you have very few chances to catch up during your school day. So the impact on a child's life throughout. So it is so important. I think it's clear now we have a problem with poverty in this country. We really need a long-term plan as part of that build back to ensure that all children can flourish and all families can give their children the support they want to.
OK, Anne Longfield, thank you so much for coming on the programme this morning. Thank you.